Welcome to Moody Reads. It is the first day of the Trans Rights Readathon, and while I was having breakfast, I read The Tea Dragon Society by Kay O'Neill. This is a younger middle grade graphic novel that focuses on a blacksmith who meets someone who's raising tea dragons, and decides to get into learning both of those crafts. The whole thing is just sweet friendship and beautiful art. There's a lot in here about generosity and caring for each other in a way that is just so soft and perfect, and makes everything that I loved about The Moth Keeper also make a lot of sense. This is a pretty simple book, but I was nearly in tears multiple times. It was really soft and sweet, and I definitely see why everybody really loves it. And I hope that the other two volumes of this are just as sweet and adorable. I don't have the other two volumes. This is a library book, but I will try to get the other two pretty soon because this was so sweet. There aren't any, at least, obviously trans characters in this book, but the author is non-binary. So, that's my first book of the readathon. I don't really have a strict TBR. My table is a mess, but I have a rather large stack of possibilities. And technically there are several others that I could very well pick up. But those are the ones that I've been looking at. For those who don't know, the Trans Rights Readathon runs during late March in the week leading up to Trans Day of Visibility. The goal is to read trans books and support trans people. So one of the things that makes the Trans Rights Readathon unique is that it was made as both a readathon and a non-centralized fundraiser. So you pick the people, funds, or organizations that you're going to be supporting. Last year, as well as this year, I'm going to be giving $5 per book that I read, plus $3 for ones that I start but don't finish, to My Sister's House Memphis. This is a grassroots organization in Memphis, Tennessee that's focused on helping unhoused trans people, specifically focusing on trans people of color in that area. I wasn't able to do a video for the Trans Rights Readathon beforehand, but I put up a post in the community tab, so hopefully some of you saw stuff about it there or on my Instagram. So hopefully you'll check them out. I've got about an hour before I have to leave for work. So I will consult my pile and figure out what I want to read next. Right, it is evening now. I went to work and came back. And I read some of this this morning and then when I was on lunch break, so I guess I'm about a third of the way in. Don't have too many thoughts so far. Some of it is good, some of it makes me feel like I'm a little bit too jaded, but I think I like the direction it's going in. So I will definitely be continuing this, but not right this second, because when I was at work today, I got Lee Mandelo's most recent book, The Woods All Black, which is a novella. I think it might be bigger than Their Wolf, Feed Them Silence. I think it might be a little bit bigger than Feed Them Silence because the pages are kind of thin. I am so stoked. This is a horror romance set in 1920s Appalachia. How cool does that sound? I'm excited. So I'm going to start reading this tonight. I've actually already opened it up. And the dedication page, I don't know, just everything about it is going to be great. So this is what tonight's reading is going to look like. And my thoughts are, when I finish this, I might need something that doesn't make me feel like something will come out of the woods and eat me. Which is where falling back in love with being human will be good. If I do feel like I would still like to feel like something's going to come out of the mountains and eat me, I'm going to read T Kingfisher's Edgar Allan Poe retelling. Can't think of the name of it, but it has a trans main character. And it's one I've been meaning to read for a while, and one that I wasn't thinking when I was initially trying to put together a kind of pile of possibilities, because I guess I just forgot that my sci-fi fantasy shelf existed, despite it being, like, right there. It's the very top. I forget that my YA exists, because the unread YA is, like, hard to access. It's a little easier now that we've moved the furniture. Anyways, this is what the last little bit of my night will look like. And I'll check back in when something happens. Right. It is the 26th now, but yesterday I finished The Woods All Black, and it was a lot, but, like, in a good way, I think. So this is set in 1920s Appalachia and focuses on a nurse who has to go to a small town. The nurse is an invert, which was terminology used then, but they're queer, probably the equivalent of trans, non-binary today, I guess. This starts out more like a gothic horror novel, where it's, you can very much see, like, the time period that it was in and kind of the background. Like, I think the horror comes from, like, you know that something is not right with the woods, but also, like, the town. Their reaction to him is not great, because of the preacher and the way that religious people are acting. And then towards the end of the novel, you get just an explosion of just a lot of things happening. So it's very gory. There's definitely smut. And overall, it was really good. I think it's really obvious that Lee Mandelo took, like, the whole time period bit very seriously. There were a lot of references. You kind of got to see what the main character was reading, also some of the language and stuff like that. And that was, you know, in the author's notes afterwards, they talk about kind of their process, and that was pretty cool. So it was a very intense book, but very cool. And I was thinking of what I wanted to pick up next. I was considering Hell Followed With Us, because that seems to be very similar thematically and obviously genre-wise. It's a horror, even though it's YA. But I was also considering T Kingfisher's Edgar Allan Poe retelling, because I have that too. And I might do that one mostly because it's shorter first, because I'm trying to read more books, especially since I didn't finish one a few days in a row for the readathon. Don't mind my fucking massive bed head. I meant to put a hat on. I think I'll do T Kingfisher next. How Hauled with Us is not an option at some point though, especially depending on how I feel after. Okay, it is Wednesday night, and yesterday I read What Moves the Dead by T Kingfisher, which was excellent. I love that I decided to go from one horror book into another, because this was so good, and I've had it for a while. I'm gonna need to get the second one. This is an Edgar Allan Poe retelling, The Fall of the House of Usher, which I'm sure I've read like so many other teenage weirdos. I had a phase where I was trying to read through all of Edgar Allan Poe's work, so I'm certain that I have read it, but I'm kind of glad that I didn't reread it right before getting to this, because just it was more surprising, I suppose. I will be reading it at some point. Can you not? You could be anywhere in the room but running into my phone charger. Stink. This was super creepy. I definitely had me on edge. Like, I think that the creep factor sort of builds. Like, there's definitely weird shit happening the whole time. But, like, the last half of the book, I was really jumpy. This was creepy and atmospheric, and it definitely had me scared. And while I could kind of see where it was going at a certain point, I was still scared and horrified. And I also really liked the characters. There were some cute side characters. I think my favorite secondary character is the one that's supposed to be Beatrix Potter's like cousin or aunt or something. Who's a really like quirky mycologist that you meet like pretty soon in the book. And I really like the main character. They're really funny and sarcastic. You're gonna have to move. I have food ready. Sorry, I had crescent rolls going in the oven. Yes, I really enjoyed the main character, and I am glad that there's a sequel. I don't know what they're going to be doing, but judging by the cover, it's also going to be quite creepy, and I'm excited. I think I'm going to spend the rest of the night reading Falling Back in Love with Being Human. I'm pretty close to being done, so I'll probably knock it out in the next half hour or so. But I also have a little bit of a book haul. A couple of things that I've ordered have come in today. The first being A Short History of Transmisogyny by Jules Gill Peterson. This is a newer verso book that I've heard good things about. I remember seeing some stuff, I think, shortly before it was coming out, and I've been excited for it, so I'm glad I got my copy. And then I also got my copy of All the Dead Things by Bear Lee, who you probably know because they're a booktuber, and if you don't know them, you should go follow them. And it's signed, so that's lovely. I'm super stoked to read this, so it's a very apt book haul for the Trans Rights Readathon. So yeah, I'm stoked. I'll finish this and then decide where to go from there. So I don't really know. I don't know what the vibe's gonna be after this. All right. Despite the new shirt, it is the same day. I just got cold. So I finished Falling Back in Love with Being Human. It's okay. You know, I do think there were some standout poems for sure. I did, tab a few things. I think especially some of the ones where she was speaking from her experience as a sex worker. There's one about caregiving that I really liked. The one about Animorphs and maybe one or two others. However, while there were those standouts and that was good, there were also parts of it that I couldn't really get into the same. Like the ones where she tried to like write a letter to TERFs, to J.K. Rowling, and that sort of sentiment is just like too much for me right now. Which makes me feel bad because that's like, loving and educating people into kind of seeing where they're wrong was something that I kind of, thought was more possible and more of the answer. And while I do currently think that that's very much true for some people, some is the key word there. And, so I don't know. I'm rambling and I feel like I'm also not like putting my stuff together the right way necessarily. I just feel like I was too jaded to like really appreciate some of this, basically. And I also think that some of it was sort of repetitive, like stylistically. The thing that I liked I did like that she included prompts after each poem, and like some of the prompts, I think, I'll probably revisit and actually do later. Like, I thought that was a really cool concept. However, like, the majority of these poems were the big block sort of poems that was really more like sentences, which I don't mind. It's reminiscent of, like, slam poetry to me, and I like that. But I don't like it for every single, or not every single, but when it's the majority of what's there, it gets like repetitive and long, and I get that this is supposed to be more letters, but it is poetry, and I feel like it was like, I don't know. I didn't vibe with it as well as I thought I was going to. So that was a little disappointing. It's still good. I see why people like it. It just wasn't for me. So I gave this like, I think just under 4 stars, like a 3.75, which every other time I rate something, I'm like wondering if the star, system is even any good, because it's like, I was almost gonna give this 4 stars, but then I had just given The Woods All Black 4 stars, and I really liked that book. Those would have been 2 very different 4 stars, which is why I have this as like 3.75. And honestly, the more that I sit with that, the more I think accurate that is. Because one of the things is I've seen a lot of praise for this book. A lot of people that I follow gave this like 5 stars and glowing review, which is why I expected to like it so much. But it just didn't gel so well with me. But that's okay. Not every book has to be for every person. I think with this book, I might have a bingo, though, for the bingo board. I'm not sure what I'm going to read next. I don't know if I want to maybe pick up one of the middle grade books to have a middle grade novel read in the last couple days of the readathon. I probably won't read any more tonight, but tomorrow will probably be a lot of reading, so maybe I can get most of the way through one of those. We'll just see how I feel then. It is the final day of the Trans Arts Readathon. In fact, it is the late evening of the last day. So I've actually read 2 books in the last couple of days. I just did not stop to talk about one of them, and then the other one I just finished. So yesterday I read A Touch of Ruckus by Ashvin Otterloo, which is a middle grade, kind of ghosty book. It's the story of Tennessee, or Tenny, who is the second oldest kid, but first oldest daughter of 6. And is spending part of the summer with her grandma while her family moves houses, and is temporarily in a bit of a crunch, in terms of housing. And while she's at her grandmother's, she makes a new friend, and they start seeing some ghosty stuff happening. And I really liked this on multiple accounts. Cute adventure, neat mystery. You know, it is middle grade, so there's an amount that you kind of expect to piece together as an adult reading it. But I think that some of the choices that were made were neat, especially some of the themes that were explored that I didn't really expect. I think the thing that got me the most about this was the oldest daughter, perfectionist, people-pleasing guilt of it all. It just, honestly, I almost put it down because it was too close to home at the beginning. I really do like how the book deals with some of those things that she's dealing with. I don't want to give too much away. There's a supernatural aspect, but there's also a very real, aspect to what she's dealing with too. And I think how she responds to her supernatural ability kind of just reflects what has already been built in her life, if that makes sense. The kind of pressure that being the oldest can bring sometimes, or she's second oldest, but my point still stands. In general, it was interesting to see low-income family of 6 is the main character, or the main focus. As someone who grew up in a really big family, more complicated than the one in this book, but my mom had 7 kids, and I'm the oldest one. And then I have 2 from my dad's, but that's neither here nor there. I thought it was a cute book. It went over a lot of neat themes, some lessons that lots of chaotic families could learn from. Very cool. Would definitely recommend, and I'd really like to read some of their other stuff. This was given to me as this was a gifted copy from the author. They sent it to me a while ago. It's signed too. It's really cool. I've been meaning to read it for a long time. They were local to Tennessee, I think East Tennessee, and I was in Middle Tennessee. And what's funny about this is that they are now in the Pacific Northwest. I am now in the Pacific Northwest. So we're both Tennessean transplants to the Washington area, which is funny, and means that I think this could go doubly for the local local author prompt. So that was very good. Gave me a lot of feelings. Lots of cool stuff. The other one that I read today, and that is Until I Love Myself, The Journey of a Non-Binary Manga Artist. And so this is memoir, manga memoir, and it largely focuses on the author's experience dealing with sexual harassment. It starts out specifically talking about really intense incidents of workplace harassment. And they're talking about their process of really trying to get over this sort of years later, the process that they go through, which includes finally being able to reach out, and also a lot of meditation on their past, and how various things have affected them. They do talk about their gender in this. Part of it, like, kind of is more background, or like specifically how what they experienced made them rethink certain things. I don't want to say too much. If you want to read it, I thought it was really good. It was really interesting to kind of see where their train of thought went, and the kind of places that our mind goes when we have to heal from something like that, and sort of the old wounds that get tripped, but also the kind of positive things that can come from looking back as well. If that makes sense. I don't know. It was neat. I'm interested to see where the second volume goes, or if there are more. The way that this read, you're also sort of seeing them write it, and like kind of what they're thinking about during certain times. So it's sort of I think similar format for my solo exchange diary, which is probably, like, from what I've understood reading bits of manga memoir, I think that's a common format. I should probably look more into it so that I understand more about the genre. But regardless, I liked this. But you'll definitely want to look into content warnings, because, like I said, it's about sexual harassment, and their response to it involved several different forms of self-harm and sort of ruminating thoughts. So for all of these, like the horror novels that I've talked about, obviously there are plenty of things to consider from that angle. But while I don't typically lay out every single content warning on here, I do try to put as much as possible in my story graph reviews. So if you're ever curious about any of the books, Storygraph is a great resource, just generally speaking, because not only can you get the author's content warnings, you can also get kind of crowdsourced content warnings that people have observed. That has been the past couple of days. So I think this just about wraps up my Transit Readathon. There is technically space in my day left because I'm not asleep yet. So I may try to start Unlearning Shame by Devin Price before I go to bed tonight. So that may be added on, like, what's been started, but I won't have anything to say about it, I don't think. So, to wrap things up, I read The Tea Dragon Society by Kay O'Neill, The Woods All Black by Lee Mandelo, What Moves the Dead by T Kingfisher, Falling Back in Love with Being Human by Cheng Thom, A Touch of Ruckus by Ashvin Otterloo, and Until I Love Myself by Poppy Pesuyama. So that's $30 to my sister's house, and plus maybe an extra $3 because I'm going to be starting the other one tonight. So that was my Translates Readathon. In the comments, let me know about yours, what you've been reading, people you've been supporting, anything like that. And thank you all so much for watching. Bye.